You know, what starts as a private family fight can sometimes snowball into something much, much bigger. That's exactly what happened here, a dispute between a husband and wife that blew up and landed in high court. And why? Because it forced a judge to answer a really tricky question, one that affects families everywhere. When does a parent's financial duty to their child actually end?
And yeah, this is the big question right at the heart of the case. I mean, think about it. We're not talking about some 18-year-old starting their first year of college. We're talking about a 31-year-old adult who's already got a postgraduate degree, wanting money for another degree in a foreign country. So, what does the law have to say about that?
Okay, so who are the people at the center of all this? Because this isn't just any family. The mother, Geeta Singh, she's the senior state official, an RAS officer. And the father? O.P. Meena. He was the chief secretary of Rajasthan, basically the top government administrator in the entire state. So you've got two very high-ranking, estranged officials locked in a legal battle over their 31-year-old daughter, Geetanjali.
And the whole massive legal fight, it all came down to this one number. The mother filed a petition demanding the father pay 700 British pounds every single month for their daughter's living expenses while she started a new course at Cardiff University in the UK. A very specific and a very significant demand.
All right, so let's break down the mother's side of things. She didn't just walk into court and ask for money. No, she framed this as a case of domestic violence. Specifically, she called it economic abuse, arguing that she was fighting for her daughter's fundamental right to an education and a future.
So how did she build that argument? Well, her first move was to claim her daughter was legally an aggrieved person under the Domestic Violence Act. Then, she pointed to the father's massive salary and said his refusal to pay was a clear form of economic abuse. And to really drive the point home, she told the court she'd been forced to take out a huge 16 lakh rupee bank loan herself just to keep her daughter afloat so far.
But, as you can imagine, the father saw things, well, completely differently. He drew a very firm line in the sand. For him, this wasn't about denying his daughter anything. It was about where his responsibility as a parent ends, especially for a grown, highly qualified adult.
And really, this timeline is his whole argument in a nutshell. He's basically saying, look, I've already done my part and then some. He paid for her postgrad from Delhi University. After that, he funded her degree from Nottingham University in the UK, all the way back in 2009. This new course at Cardiff, he argued, was something she decided on her own without his consent, and it was just a step too far.
So you see, this is the heart of it, right? It boils down to this fundamental clash of beliefs, something that touches on a really deep cultural question. On one side, you have the mother's claim. An unmarried daughter has a right to be supported by her wealthy father. And on the other, the father's counter. A 31-year-old with multiple degrees is perfectly capable of earning her own money, and there has to be a limit to a parent's duty.
So with neither side budging an inch, this whole thing lands in court. And with all the emotions and family drama swirling around, the judge had to just cut through all of that noise and focus on the cold, hard letter of the law. This case wasn't going to be decided on feelings. It was going to hinge on the precise legal definition of one single word.
And this right here, this is the legal text that everything hinged on. The mother was using the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. And under that act, economic abuse is defined as taking away financial resources that a person requires out of necessity.
Just 4 little words. Requires out of necessity. The entire case, the whole argument, it all came down to this single phrase. The judge had to figure out, was a second postgraduate degree in the UK for a 31-year-old truly a necessity, or was it something else entirely?
So what did the court say? Well, here it is straight from the judge. He ruled that the cost of pursuing further higher education abroad, especially since the daughter was already a postgraduate and perfectly capable of getting a job, well, that just cannot be called a requirement out of necessity. In the eyes of the law, it was a choice, maybe a preference, but it was not a necessity.
So, once the judge made that critical distinction, the verdict was pretty much set. The mother's petition was dismissed. But the impact of this ruling went way beyond just this one family. It actually set a really powerful precedent for how our legal system understands parental responsibility. So what are the big takeaways from all this? First, the court made it crystal clear. Parental financial obligations are not a blank check forever. They have limits. Second, the Domestic Violence Act is there to be a shield against genuine abuse, not a tool to fund voluntary lifestyle choices.
It also reinforced this idea that a well-educated adult is expected to become self-sufficient. And most importantly, it sent a message that the word necessity isn't just a suggestion. It is a high legal bar you have to clear to prove economic abuse.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? This case forced a court to draw a very specific line for one family, but it brings up a universal question for all of us, in our own lives and our own families. Where do we draw that line between being supportive and enabling, between family support and personal responsibility? That's something the law can guide, but ultimately it's a question we all have to answer for ourselves.